Welcome everyone to Tell Me Dad. My name is Paul, and in this podcast, I interview my dad to find out about his interesting, funny, and enlightening life stories. So if you are interested in learning from my dad, then stay tuned. So that since this is the very first episode of our endeavor together, I think it would be good for you to introduce yourself first. Who are you?
Oh, who am I?
Interesting question, isn't it?
It is. Well, 70 years old, very exciting life. Born in 54. This is just a quick and short description about me. I am an engineer, and I traveled the world and went through many adventures that I also told you about in the past.
Yeah, definitely.
And I was kind of excited when you said just a few months ago that why don't you just write a book about all this,
Yeah.
And I said, well, yes, well, I try, So, and
Before you continue, I would like to ask you, I think you
Sure.
forgot one piece of information. Why don't you tell them your name?
My name is Willie.
That's good.
And just
Yeah.
we just leave it at that.
Yeah,
I'm
of course,
just-
of
I'm
course.
Just Willie,
Yeah, of course, first name.
Because if I tell you my last name, I might have a couple of lawyers in my house.
I guess a few people would recognize you.
Right.
Yeah.
Next week.
No, but I asked you about the book. Yeah, why don't you write a book?
Yeah.
And
Well-
what was your reaction?
So one day I was sitting down. I was starting to write a book, and I started with when I was kind of like 12, 13, 14 years old. And first page was done in like 1 hour, and then the second page in 3 hours, and the third page in like 8 hours. So I realized kind of quick like that it's going to be a very time-consuming venture, and it is not that much of fun, because to write something is more difficult than to just talk about something. And people that, like celebrities that write their memories, you see, they have their ghostwriters. They give them just some hinges and they write the book, and the celebrity at the end of the day, he takes a look at it and he said, wow, that's just the way I would have written it, and go to the printing press. I do not have that privilege, so
Sure.
I stopped at page 5. So, and then I put that pen away, and I kind of forgot about it, and I was hoping that you're also going to forget about it. And
Yeah, that usually doesn't work with me.
then just a few days ago, you approached me with your idea of doing that podcast. And since I told you I am an engineer, but from my heart, I'm actually a salesman.
True,
So,
I can confirm.
and sales guys, they like to talk, So, and the sharpest weapon that I had in my life was my way of talking, way of exciting people, and being a salesman. I think you prefer to do a podcast rather than sitting down and just writing a book. So, basically, I really appreciate that idea, and it is an honor and a privilege for me to do that. And it also gives me an opportunity to look back at my life, some stories that I have forgotten about, actually. But when you start at, let's say, the age of 12, 13 years, then, and you start from there going forward, automatically you go through a lot of stories and adventures that you have forgotten about, actually. So, do you want me to start at that age to just give you kind of a briefing of my childhood and then go on to my education and so on? Yeah?
I mean, this podcast is all about you. You start
all about me.
wherever-
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's called Tell Me That, isn't it?
Yeah, I heard that before.
Yeah. So
Well,
yeah, you start wherever you want, whatever
yeah.
you find interesting and worth sharing.
Yeah, thanks. Well, as I said, born in '54, and I was one of three. My mom had three sons, one 6 years older, one 6 years younger.
So right in between were you.
I was right in between. You see, the big stuff that had to be handled, always the two big
course,
guys, and
yeah.
the small stuff, always the two small guys. You see, I was always in the deal. Anyway, so, but all three guys, all three sons were so different, you know. And the older one, was the born playboy. The most important part for him was sport cars and blonde girls, you know. So the little guy, little professor, you know, he was just sucking up know-how, reading books, and so he made his way up, and he became a medical doctor, and so also totally different. And I was apparently probably the normal guy, you know. So what I had to do at a very early stage of my life, I had to support my mom, because my dad, he died in 1969. At that time, I was not even 15 years old. And it was not that easy. My mom with three sons, not really big money. It was not easy. And my dad, he was a hardworking man. He came from Croatia. He met my mom right after World War II. And these two guys, they fell in love, and they got married, got three sons, and my dad, unfortunately, before he really enjoyed what he has built up in his life, he passed away. He had total kidney failure. And at that time, in '69, there was just not really a cure against that. And the only thing they had at that time was to put him on a machine to clean the blood, you know, dialysis. And but this is only something that you can survive another 2 years, and then that's it. You know. So with 49 years, he passed away. My mom was sitting there with three guys. My dad had, I mean, thanks God, he had built a house in his short life with 4 apartments, and my mom, she still had to pay off, you know, a big mortgage on the house, but still there was a little bit money left to kind of survive. In addition, I mean, the younger guy, my younger brother, he went to school, and my older brother, I don't know where he went, but the only thing I remember is a red Triumph Spitfire and blonde hair right next to him, you know. So he was not really a big help for my mom. So, and at that time, I mean, money was tight. Money was kind of hard to get. And what I did, I had a friend, and his dad, he had a company. They were collecting like scrap metal and paper and stuff like that, and for resale. And once in a while, we got the big carriage, and about 2 by 3 meters footprint. And we pulled that carriage through the city, and we knocked at the doors, and we were asking for paper, old paper. And when this carriage was filled up with a big bulk of paper, we brought it back to my friend's dad. And if we were lucky, we got like 14, 15 Deutschmarks, which was at that time a hell of a lot of money. And so I got my share, 50%. I got back home, and I gave that money to my mom, and she took the money, but always took one Deutschmark, he gave it to me, and she said, "You're going to buy something for you." And
at that time, what could you buy from one Deutschmark?
Well, some sweets, or at that time I was also into these comic books, and I was not the Mickey Mouse stuff, but they had like Tarzan and Akim and Sigurd and all this crap, and I bought them, I read them, and then I traded them. So that was actually beginning of my starting to become a salesman.
The beginning of the career.
Yeah.
Usually it shows at a young age, doesn't it?
And so we kind of survived. My mom was a very good housewife. She turned nothing into a beautiful meal. It was just amazing, But there is one thing I still need to tell. My dad always wanted me to become a cook, a chef, and
crazy. I could never imagine you as a chef. I mean, you can cook. It's not that.
Well, it was kind of crazy because my dad was a very pragmatic person, and the reason for that was the chef of the top restaurant in Düren was living in one of our apartments, and he was a good friend of my dad, and he always told my dad, when Willie gets out of school, he's going to get into my restaurant, and I'm going to turn him into great chef, So I actually even did an internship at his restaurant, and after 2 days, I got kind of lost because from morning till evening, just yelling and screaming, and so that was not my world, It was just, and every day the same thing. I after 2 days, I said, no, that's it. And then I had the opportunity to do a internship at a production company in Düren. They made, it's kind of funny, they made chains, small chains, big chains, whatever chain you need, they made it, They were working for the army, for military, chains for cleaning guns, chain for whatever, So the chain as a product was kind of boring, even though you wouldn't believe what kind of chains they made. But the tooling to make these chains, this is what was very, very challenging, and this tooling had to be designed, it had to be made, it had to be put into a machine, and on one side they put wire into the machine, and on the other side the chain came out, It was kind of, it was like a miracle, So I was fascinated from this company, and I started an apprenticeship with them as a draftsman. It took about 3 years, and within these 3 years, I learned how to make drawings, how to design components, and it was a challenge for me as a young man, 16, 17 years old. And with 18 years, I got my certificate as a draftsman, professional draftsman. So that was my first professional certificate, and I tell you, I was proud as hell. So I stayed with the company another 6 months, and then I ended up in, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. I ended up in the comfort zone, you know. Mm-hmm. I made my money. I was sitting there every morning, 8 o'clock, from 8 to 5, making these drawings, and it was every day, it was the same. So I said, it can't go on like that, you know. I mean, I got to change my life. And I actually applied for a job at one of the leading machine tool companies in Germany, which, by coincidence, their headquarters was in Düren, my hometown. But, I mean, I never thought that they would even look at me, you know. So, anyway, I sent my papers to them, and, I mean, it was not like today, you get a call on your mobile or on your phone, you know, or an email. At that time, it took like 2 weeks, and I got a letter. Yeah. A letter with an invitation to talk about this position that I had applied for. And so I went there very excited, you know. I was shaking from my little toe to my hairs. It was so exciting. And when I met the head of the design office, very tall, handsome fellow, you know, and it was something that really has changed my life. The people working in this company, they were so different, you know. And so we had our discussion, and at the end of the interview, he said, well, you know what? Next month you can start. This is your salary. 988 Deutschmarks was my first salary.
Which, as a first salary, considering the time, seems quite good, right?
It was, well, let's say it was fair.
Okay.
It was fair. Okay. It was fair. And he said, after 6 months, our director, actually the guy that founded this machine tool division, our director will take a look at your performance, and if you perform well, he will set the final salary for you.
Okay.
So, of course, at the 6 months, I was really very anxious to do a great job, and to be quite honest, I was pretty good at making drawings. You know, it's not like today you're sitting on a CAD system, you know, and pushing buttons, and you create a drawing within 10 minutes. I mean, at that time, you had a big drawing board, you had a pen, and I mean, manually you had to create the drawing, you know. So, but anyway, it worked out, and great, and these machine tools, they were so fascinating, you know. I mean, at that time, like a gearbox with 25 gears and 20 clutches, you know, to create 36 different speeds. I mean, these things were masterpieces of German engineering art, you know. I mean, today you solve a problem like that with a little servo drive from Siemens and a little circuit board, and you connect that to your CNC control, and that's it, you know. It costs like $500. And at that time, this gearbox was like 20,000, 30,000 Deutschmarks, you know. So anyway, but at that time, to get into that business, it was very helpful to understand the technology and to understand the way machines are built or machine tools are built. And so I was working 6 months, and I was kind of happy, and it was a great job, and every day was very exciting and kind of new. And I was in this big office with like 20 drawing boards, and I was pretty much in the center. And so after 6 months, I got a paycheck, and the salary was 1,680 Deutschmarks.
Not a bad increase.
Well, I looked at it and I didn't believe it, of course.
Yeah.
So I went to the head of the design office and I said, "Hey, sorry, but in accounting they must have made a mistake. I mean, 1,680, it's almost double of what I had before." No, our director, he took a look at your performance and what you did for the company so far, and he doesn't want to lose you, and he set your salary to that level. And you can imagine, I mean, at that time it was great, great. But now it's the big but again. It's a great job, a great salary. You get into that office in the morning, 8 o'clock till 5 o'clock. Every day you have this big drawing board in front of you. You are making these drawings, and you are wearing off one pen after the other. So after like 1 year, there was that comfort zone again.
Yeah.
So I said, really, it's a lot of fun, and it's great, and it's super, but no, this is not what you want to do. You don't want to stay the next 40 years in front of this drawing board, because at that time I didn't know that things really developed into CAD systems and stuff like that. So I decided to go back to school. So I went to Cologne and I started engineering school, 3 years, and I finished with a degree in mechanical engineering. So I got a degree as a professional engineer, mechanical engineering. And then I went back to this company, and they were very happy to take me back, because they, of course, didn't just need draftsmen, they also needed people that with leadership capabilities, that have a vision, that want to do more than just making drawings. So after like 3-4 months, I got an opportunity to become the design manager of a new department that they had started for special clamping fixtures, with 3 people, 3 engineers and me, so 4 people, my own department, and I was the head of that department. So it was actually my first position as a leader in a company.
And at that time you were how old?
At that time I was like 25 years old.
That's still quite young. So
yeah,
how did you manage to lead a team at 25 years old?
Well, you have to be ambitious, Yeah. I mean, you have to have... important is that everybody in the team understands that you are the leader. If you show any weakness, if you give them an opportunity to bounce you around, I mean, you are lost, So, I mean, you have to earn that. You have to earn the respect of your people, team members, and that worked out pretty well, because to handle people, to deal with people was always something that I was after, I mean, so I was in that department, and we did great jobs, created great fixtures and super duper. And then again, 8 o'clock in the office till 5 o'clock next day, 8 to 5, 8 to 5. Okay, the fixtures, they changed, and another challenge here, another challenge there, but everything within limits, I mean, it was in the beginning kind of exciting, but it turned more and more into becoming boring. And then one day, I went into my office, and there was a big aisle to my office, and in that aisle there was a big blackboard, where you can put, messages and so on. And there was that one message with a job description. It said, "We are looking for a young engineer." I mean, at that time it was allowed to say a young engineer.
Nowadays it isn't.
Today you would have to say, "We are looking for an engineer, a lady or a man," or blah, blah.
Or diverse,
so, anyway, so for a young engineer working as a project manager and sales manager in our office in Detroit, Michigan, United States, at the facility of our general importer for our machines for all United States. This person will be responsible for all sales negotiations, layout of machines, and so he is the head of our company in the United States. So, and I looked at this. It was on that blackboard for like 5-6 hours, So I took it off. I went straight into the office of the director, which was actually forbidden at that time, So I passed his secretary, which was actually, at that time you could also commit suicide, the same thing, But I passed her, went into his office, and I said, "Sir, you found your engineer for the United States." And he said, "Oops, who is that?" I said, "It's me, And he said, "You got to be kidding." He said, "Yeah, this is the challenge that I was looking for, and it would be a privilege and an honor for me to serve the company in the United States as a project manager and sales manager." And he said, "Well, sounds good. Let me talk to the president of the company in the United States, and then we'll go from there." So 1 week later, to make a long story short, 1 week later I was sitting with the president of the company, who became later on a very good friend of mine, in a conference room at the company, and we talked about his company and what we can do in the United States and how can we push business. And so at that time, it was actually also my step into the world of sales, dealing with people and getting away from just designing something, Of course, being able to design something is a great gift, However, with that know-how and that background, if you can also talk to people, convince people, make them believe that you have the best product in the world, you got it made, So I got that job, and it was so exciting, and I signed my contract. My first salary, well, the funny part is my first salary was actually $1,800 a month offered by the president of the company in the United States. And then my boss in Germany, the director of this company here, he called him back and he said, "What, $1,800 for this guy? No, you have to pay at least $2,000. So that was my first raise that I got
without even working for it.
Without even doing it.
Crazy.
So I got this job, and I had to prepare myself for this venture in the United States, and I had to collect drawings, I had to collect information, and I made an additional internship in our production facility, our production hall, assembling of machine tools. Because you see, the theoretical part is one thing, and you can be the best designer in the world. If you don't have that practical experience, even as an engineer, if you don't have that practical experience, you will never belong to the top guys, you know. I mean, because when you sell something to a plant manager in the United States, most of the time these guys, well, at that time, were kind of self-made men, you know. They have started as mechanical engineers on the shop floor, you know, and worked their way up, and all of a sudden they became the plant manager. But these are practical people, you know. So, I mean, you have to know what you're talking about. And anyway, so that took about 6, 7, 8 months, and then I was ready to start my venture in the United States. But this is something that I'm going to tell you next time about.
Very nice. What a nice ending. What a great ending. So, boys and girls, I hope you have enjoyed this very first episode of this podcast with my dad. I have, to be honest. I mean, I know your stories, but it's a pleasure for me to hear them over and over again. It's great. Any final words, Dad?
Well, I really appreciate your invitation to this podcast. I mean, for me, it's something very special. You know, I'm 70 years old. I'm not really that kind of digital guy, you know, and podcast. A lot of people who are 70 years old, they think it's something to eat, you know.
But not you.
No. But still, I think for me, it's also kind of an adventure, and I'm looking forward to tell you a lot of very interesting, exciting, but also funny stories about my life.
Thank you everyone for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something from my dad. If you're interested in how his story continued, then make sure to tune in again next week for some more lessons. Also, make sure to share this podcast with your family and friends. I would love to see you again next week. Until then, have a good time.